Welcome to Caleb Carey. I'm Jordan Rabel.
I'm Caleb Terrence.
Hey.
Take number like fucking 8 here.
Yeah, you want to talk about this again? Hey,
no, I don't want to do it again.
We'll rush through it.
Don't pretend to do it for the first time, though. Don't do it like that.
I can't bother talking about this again and feeling interested in it whatsoever. So I'm just going to tell our listeners, and you can just do whatever.
Okay.
Hey, I looked up why maybe we called whales dicks, and it seems, Caleb, if you were so interested,
we don't actually know.
That we don't know.
We don't know.
And perhaps it was a Swedish word for
fat.
Yes. Or
blubber.
Yes.
Yes.
And so perhaps, Caleb, we just heard some Swedish sailors saying, hey, there goes a big fiery dick. And we were just like, yeah, that sounds funny. And we just went with it. And it would make sense as to that becoming slang for our penis. Like, hey, I got a big old thing. Look at this thing. Hey.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a dick.
No, dick was just a feeling.
It was, got to feel it all over.
Yeah.
Now, from where we last left off.
Ooh, good save.
Come on. The more times we do this, the further I'm going to get into my first beer, and then my second, and then my third. And I'm just going to be like, oh, welcome.
Jesus, man. I mean, you're only like halfway through a fucking 12-ounce Modelo right now.
Yeah.
How much could that possibly affect you?
I drank beforehand.
How much? What is that? Oh, see, that's
your rule, not my rule. You're not allowed.
Okay. I've earned this 100%. That's the entire reason why we switched up the scheduling now. Just because if I fucking like dumpster things up by getting too drunk beforehand, we then have recovery time.
Hey, are you guys going to record tonight? No, I don't get off until 6 and Caleb's off all day, meaning he'll be drunk by 9 a.m. So no, we can't record today.
Look, man, what do you expect me to do? Just be alone and be fine?
Just cry every now and then. Oh, wait, where were we? Oh, hey, Herman Melville. He's written 5 novels up to this point, each one of them steadily getting worse as time goes on. He was great with his first big success with Typee. He was the man who lived amongst the cannibals. None of them were cannibals. He was just, eating fucking coconut. But, it was interesting to people like, hey, a white guy. Wow. Out in the native lands. And so as time goes on, it's not like his success is horrible. He's a known author at this point, 5 books, but he himself feels like shit. Like just consecutively, it's worse feeling and worse feeling and worse feeling as time goes on. He's hating every single book as it goes on, but he feels that this will be his big fucking recovery. And he's correct. Moby Dick.
Yeah.
Moby Fat.
Yeah. Moby.
All right.
Yeah. I don't know. Now that we're here, I'm kind of over laughing at the name.
Wait until you hear the word.
Oh, no. Save it.
Ishmael. No, there's nothing.
Oh.
No, I know.
Oh, okay. Get me excited like that.
I've got my ways of getting you excited. So, the famous first words of Moby Dick. Cetus, Latin. Whale, Anglo-Saxon. Hvalt, Danish. Wal, Dutch. Hwal, Swedish. Hvaler, Icelandic.
Are these all words for dick? They are words for dick, aren't they?
The novel opens up with a real bang. Etymology. Herman Melville goes on for a couple pages about the origin of the word whale. And this is actually a reason that Moby Dick is a huge turnoff for a lot of readers. There'd be like 10 chapters of great fucking storytelling and action, and then, boom, we're going to learn about color theory. Now, here's the thing that you have to understand. Yeah, Herman Melville's purpose in writing this novel was that this would become the definitive book about whales. Not just to have a great story, but anything you would ever care to know about whales, from its biology to its reproductive system, could be learned through this book. What?
Never mind. Go on.
You don't know words. Shut the fuck up. This was going to be the one book you'd ever need. That was his whole purpose for this thing. However, these parts that he wrote down, they're not timeless because the science has changed. He didn't think it would change. He thought that we knew everything that we had to know about whales.
Of course he did. He's white.
Yeah. And, like, maybe excluding the chapter on color theory, which is a real thing, most of the science blurbs in this book are just dead-ass wrong.
I want to read these. These sound really funny.
I like the idea that he had.
Like,
but
it sounds like if you
anyway.
read this now, it's very hilariously, obviously not correct.
Well, actually, no. Like, you wouldn't know it, and then it's just like, because I mean, it's not like he's talking about medieval biology and shit, where he's just like, and then the wizard spiders crawl inside the uterus and grow a new whale. Like, he thinks he knows what he's talking about, but he didn't. None of us did.
Okay.
All right. So
Did he at least give like really descriptive diagrams of like the whole process?
There were no diagrams. He just explains everything.
Oh. Well, I'm
It's
fucked.
all words. No pictures. Now, the real words to the story of Moby Dick. Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse, and nothing particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. Ishmael is your typical sailor. In a way, he's kind of a nomad. He doesn't have any extravagant goals, no real endgame. His purpose is merely to survive. Even as a career, as he moves from port city to port city, he comes aboard most ships strictly as a sailor. Nothing ever more than a deckhand. But for the sake of his bucket list, Ishmael would like to sail off on a whaler from the island of Nantucket, the whaling capital of the world. However, Ishmael's missed the last boat that will take him there from New Bedford.
Like the sleigh ride?
Yes, like a Nantucket sleigh ride. Not a sex move, by the way.
Oh, could be terrifying.
Women get really mad when you...
That's some Hellraiser shit, dude. No, get the fuck out of here.
Just jump on their back and try to ride them. Like, yeah! They hate it. So he looks for...
You gotta ask.
So he looks for a place to stay.
Will you try to buck me?
8
Please.
seconds. So Ishmael looks for a place to stay for the next couple of days while he waits for the next boat to arrive. All the inns he finds are too expensive, so he hopes to fall asleep in the nearby church without notice. But as he opens the door, he finds that it's a congregation full of people wailing and screaming as the preacher screams about the end of days. Eventually, Ishmael wanders into a dilapidated building called the Spouter Inn.
Spouter.
Like it, you know,
Spouter.
spout. Yeah, it's a spouter.
Spouter?
It's the spouter. It's the thing where they get all the watery jizz coming out. You know what I'm talking
You mean
about?
like a blow, like out the...
A blowhole, yes. It's a spout. This inn, being the cheapest in town, is also full, but a proud spot for whalers. The living room and bar are overcrowded with ruffians, with a wall full of hooks, harpoons, and spears on one side, and an oil painting of
Sounds fucking like a fantastic idea to have that in a fucking bar in that time period in that kind of fucking town.
Second Amendment, motherfucker.
It's like, if we're gonna have bar fights, we're gonna make them fucking amazing.
Look at Johnny. He's just got the trash can lid. Oh, you guys. Damn it. I was late to the fight. Come on.
I'm gonna lose my other arm.
Every night it's just battle royale. Like one kid's got a megaphone and the other's got like boxing gloves. So on one side are all these fucking weapons, and on other side, a lone oil painting of a whale destroying a ship on the other. Ishmael asks for a possible room, but the innkeeper, Peter Coffin, tells him that the only option he has left is to share a room with a South Seas sailor named Queequeg, who is tall, muscular, and covered in tribal tattoos. Ishmael asks where Queequeg is now. Like, maybe he could talk to the guy beforehand and make sure he's, you know, not insane. And Peter Coffin's like, Queequeg's not insane. He pays on time. And Ishmael's like, well, where is he now? And he's like, he's out in town selling shrunken heads. It sounds fucking dope.
Nice.
It's so cool. So Ishmael elects to sleep on the couch in the living room of the Spouter Inn instead, but finds the noise from the other sailors too troublesome. Hesitantly, Ishmael decides to share the room with Queequeg after all. Now, Queequeg's not there at the moment, so Ishmael has to sleep in this guy's bed and hope he's told about having a new roommate before he gets in. Unfortunately, he's not. So Queequeg gets home from selling his shrunken heads, does a little prayer to this little idol, and hops into bed. And Ishmael doesn't say shit the entire time. Like, he's just peeking from behind the fucking blankets, like watching him just put down chopped off human heads and fucking like praying to his little Satanist idol thing. He's just like,
it just didn't feel right to tell him.
So he gets in, and Queequeg just feels around.
Hey,
What's poking me there? And he's just like, what? Who the fuck are you? And Ishmael freaks out, just like he has no right to complain. But like Queequeg's just like, what? And he just goes, ah! And just, and fucking Peter Coffin runs upstairs and quickly dissolves the situation. But they still have to share a bed. Like, seriously, the next morning, legitimately, they are spooning.
well, that's why you sleep.
Queequeg's big spoon.
No, you sleep opposite ways, so it's not gay.
Oh, yeah.
That's
so
the
that
trick,
yeah. But then you get their toes in your mouth, and it's like, well, I can't just take them out of my mouth now. No, their toesies are warm.
Yeah, that's just that's just life. That just happens. You can't do anything about that. It's not a thing. It's just it's just
gotta keep.
What else are you gonna do?
It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Well, Ishmael goes to a church for morning mass, a different one than the one that he went to the night before with all screaming people. And the preacher's altar is shaped like the bow of a ship.
I hope that's Friday night.
Karaoke. So the preacher climbs a rope ladder to get up to the bow of the ship. That's the altar. Gets up to the pulpit, begins his speech. His sermon is, of course, about Jonah and the whale. Actually, this church Ishmael goes to in the book is based on the Seaman's Bethel from Herman's whaling days. The one that has like the fucking names etched into the marble of the people who died at sea and everything.
Yeah.
In the book, they have the same monuments to sailors that they have in real life, too. And although the pulpit being shaped like the bow of a ship was Melville's invention, the real-life Seaman's Bethel in New Bedford actually added one in 1961. They also note with the placard what pew Melville sat in, but I don't know how the fuck they know that because he wasn't famous yet when he did that. So That's bullshit. Anyway.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Over the course of the next several days, Ishmael and Queequeg become so friendly with one another that they literally get married. Basically, they end up having a lot to talk about. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
It's just very progressive.
No, literally, like, Queequeg's just like, I don't know, he's just like, man, I like you a lot. Like, you're my best friend. And he's just like, thank you, Queequeg, you're very pleasant too. And he's like, let's fucking get married. And he's like, all right, it's just, it was very natural.
Wait, no, you're lying to me. That wasn't legal. I know that. Hang on.
Well, it turns out if you have a sack full of human heads, they let you do whatever the fuck you want. So.
Okay. I still think you're lying.
What are you going to do, read and...
Absolutely not.
Disprove me?
Fair enough. Proceed.
Well, basically, they end up having a lot to talk about, having late nights, sharing the bed, and trying out each other's religions. Like, Queequeg goes to mass, and Ishmael prays in front of his little idol with him. And Queequeg has Ishmael smoke out the same pipe as him, and that's as good as a South Seas marriage, according to Queequeg. Just sharing the pipe. I have married a lot of men.
Did you even mean to do that?
What?
Never mind. Go on.
So he gives Ishmael half his shit since they're married now. And Ishmael sees to Queequeg becoming more civilized with fancy clothes and calls him, quote, George Washington cannibalistically developed.
Oh.
Like, he just gives him, like, a top hat and shit. I don't know. It's cute.
It's just I don't know.
A little emasculating. Well, they still spend every night in bed together. And as Ishmael says, quote, in our heart's honeymoon lay I and Queequeg, a cozy, loving pair. It was ahead of its time. Well, eventually Ishmael and Queequeg make their way to Nantucket, where they shop...
Holy shit.
What? I wrote it down, man. That's... They're married.
Moby Dick had an interracial gay couple?
Ahead of its time.
Okay, you're clearly lying, but is that actually a fucking quote?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what the fuck else that means.
Yeah, well, it's not one of those things where, like, you have to try and figure it out like fucking Ulysses with what the fuck is going on. No, he says straight up, like, hey, we smoked out the same pipe, he gave me half his shit, I gave him a top hat, it was funny, we're married. We still sleep in bed together.
All right.
Hey.
Yeah.
I don't think they consummated their marriage, but they're just like, it's fun, you know? Whatever. I do know that there are still some cultures that do it where they don't like fuck or anything, but it's like as best friends, they get married and they like just two tough dudes walking around town holding hands.
Just two tough dudes.
Just a couple of dudes.
Just two tough dudes.
Two just duffed up men. Now, eventually, Ishmael and Queequeg make their way to Nantucket, where they shop around for a ship that will employ them. Finally, amongst their run of bad luck, the pair comes across the Pequod. Described as a cannibal of a craft and adorned with the bones and teeth of whales, Ishmael meets the owners of the Pequod. A couple of men.
He really likes this cannibal thing.
I mean, he lived amongst them, you know. So they meet the owners of the Pequod, a couple of guys named Peleg and Bildad, who agree to employ them. But they warn that the Pequod is no craft for beginners. No, this is a whaling vessel run by the crazed Captain Ahab. And Peleg leans close and says to Ishmael, "Clap eye on Captain Ahab, young man, and thou wilt find that ye has only one leg." "What do you mean, sir? Was the other one lost by a whale?" "Lost by a whale? Young man, come nearer to me. It was devoured, chewed up, crunched by the monstrousest parmacetti that ever chipped a boat."
Was it diabetes?
"Them Oreos will kill ye." At first, the rest of the sailors are pretty shaky with Queequeg. I mean, he does look pretty intense. But Queequeg points to a spot of tar on the water over the side.
How much shit could a dude with one leg fuck up, really?
How much what? Like, ship could he fuck
No,
up?
how much shit could a dude, like, wreck if he had, like, one leg? Like, really?
In terms of what?
Never mind.
Like, just, what, fucking up everyone's lives? A lot if he's the captain, I mean.
I guess. No, that's not what I meant. Go on.
All right, well. So, Queequeg, to show his promise as a worker, he points to a spot of tar on the water over the side of the ship and hits it dead center with his harpoon, showing off his skill. Everyone's impressed, and Bildad wants to convert him to Christianity. But Peleg is like, "No, dude, don't bother." And he's like, "Why? Because he's a savage?" Peleg's like, "No, because he's a harpooner. There's no saving them. They're all going to hell." So Ishmael and Queequeg sign the contract, and soon after have a walk about town, where they run into a strangely deformed man named Elijah, a man who speaks like a prophet and hints at a terribly bloody past when it comes to Captain Ahab. He all but tells the two that the Pequod is a doomed ship. And this makes sense, since in the Bible, the mad King Ahab is foretold his destruction from the prophet Elijah. As you'll remember from your Baptist school, I'm assuming? Oh, there was no school for the Baptists where there was just going to church.
No, you don't gotta read. Just snakes, bud.
It's all snakes. Just snakes. There's also this part of dark humor right here that I really like when one day Ishmael tries to go back to his and Queequeg's room and he finds the door locked and he can't seem to get Queequeg to respond. It turns out he's just meditating so he doesn't notice the commotion. But the lady in charge of their hotel is worried that Queequeg has killed himself in his room, and she considers making a sign that says no suicides permitted here and no smoking in the parlor. I thought it was funny.
No suicides permitted.
No suicides and no smoking allowed.
Look, don't be rude.
Yeah, it's old-timey humor. Well, the Pequod finally leaves port on Christmas Day in chapter 22. It takes 22 chapters just to get on the fucking boat. Bildad and Peleg are the ones to take the ship out of port because Captain Ahab has been bedridden in the cabin ever since his last adventure, the one in which he lost his leg. Ishmael and Queequeg haven't actually seen him yet. Once the ship is out in the ocean, Bildad and Peleg take a small boat back to shore. The first mate of the Pequod is an Englishman named Starbuck, who's a devout Christian and so afraid of whales that it borders on the superstitious. The second mate is...
Probably not a good idea.
Right? It seems like fuck, man, the pay. Like, what do you do?
It just seems like...
Look, I don't like heights, but man, given the amount of money for those fucking electricians that are like airdropped out of helicopters to go fix up a fucking wire on like one of those big towers, it's like...
That's not...
Given enough money, I'll do it.
That's not how that works.
Well, actually, I mean...
At all.
What are you talking about? What?
I don't know nothing about this. Let's move along.
I will tell you, the way that people are paid here is that depending on your rank on the boat, you're given a bigger percentage of the share of like whatever they make commission on for the whale parts. So if you make like $1,000 and you're like a fucking, a first mate and you have a 5% share or whatever, and then you've got like $50 or something. I think my math's wrong, but whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. So maybe. I don't know. Anyway, let's see. The second mate is kind of a cowboy named Stub, who always smokes a pipe, and whenever the sailors need to go fast or something, he's always like, "Don't worry, it's just our livelihoods. If we can't do the work, we don't eat, that's all."
He's just smoking a pipe and being extremely fucking passive-aggressive. Like,
just a real facetious fuck. Just like not even bothering to like help or anything. It's just like, you guys are fucking slow. Actually kind of reminds me of you.
Fuck off.
And finally, there's Flask.
You're doing great, guys. We're just not going to be home until fucking 8 o'clock. That's fine, though. I mean, I'm cool with this.
No, it's cool. No. I'll help drag the brush, too. I'll do all of it. It's okay. It's cool.
No, I'll do fucking everything. Fuck.
Call me Stubbs. And finally, there's Flask, a southerner who just very clearly doesn't want to be there. And each of these shipmates had a different whale boat when out on the hunt. So I remember in the last episode, I talked about how there's the main boat, and then they've got like they'll have like 5 boats or something that go out and actually, do the Nantucket sleigh ride on the fucking whale or whatever. Mm-hmm. They've got 3 boats, and it's each of these men who head it.
Damn.
I know. Well, I guess, I'm not going to disparage fucking Herman Melville on this, who was a whaler for a number of years.
No, that makes sense.
Maybe he knows.
No, I guess if they had more, it'd just be like more shit to get fucked up, and if they had any less, that's probably like the perfect number.
Probably, actually, yeah.
Like,
the one guy does say it's an experienced whale ship too, so like maybe you need 10 fucking whale boats if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, but 3 if you're experienced. I don't know. Maybe we can ask a Norwegian or something. Mm-hmm. And Ishmael realizes that besides 2 of the 3 shipmates, there's barely anybody on the Pequod who's a natural-born American. In fact, with Queequeg becoming Starbuck's harpooner, he's completed the collection of brown guys at the helm. Stubbs' harpooner is Tashtego, a Native American, and Flask has Dagu, an African. It's one of those things where like a white guy trying to come up with like an African name, and it's always really like not very good at it. It's
wouldn't he?
Hey, Stan Lee, the white guy from New York. What's an African sounding country? I don't know, Wakanda. Yeah, that kind of thing.
I don't know. It's just kind of the dude like
he's barely
traveled.
in it anywhere.
The guy who wrote this, like he should.
Dagu? I don't know. Maybe.
I don't fucking know.
What the fuck do we know?
I'm like, yeah. I'm just saying, it's
this
like
is
more
the Know Nothing podcast.
It's more embarrassing if he did that because he should have known because he traveled around on a fucking shitty boat.
Fuck. I'm not going to go over his routes right now anyway. I don't think he touched tips with Africa.
I don't think you can go over his routes right now, Jordan. I think we're on the same level.
I can lie about it better than you can. And I will point out that this hasn't been confirmed, but I do like this theory. So the 3 dudes, the 3 harpooners for the 3 boats, supposedly each shipmate is actually a representation of the white world, and the harpooners are a representation of what ethnicity the actual laborer in that part of the world is. So, for instance, Starbuck is English, and he has Queequeg, who's from the South China Seas, and a lot of dirty work in England was done by people from that area. And Stubbs is very Western, so he's got the Native American, and Flask is from the South, so of course he has the African. It's a nice little coincidence if it's not made to be that way, but either way, it's a nice theory, I think.
Yeah.
And he will come up later, but I don't have a great way of introducing this character, but there's also this little black kid with a tambourine employed on the Pequod for seemingly no other reason than
to just make it more terrible when the ship dies.
He's just fun to have around.
Look at him go!
He's named Pip. Supposedly, he's a runaway slave, and Ahab just kind of happened to pick him up. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
Can I get on the boat? Yeah.
Only if you have a tambourine. Oh Lord!
How adorable!
I be making Christmas
Get on, you scamp!
Anyway, after several days at sea, Captain Ahab emerges from his cabin at last. He's been horrifically scarred with a jagged cut down the one side of his face. Quote, "It resembled that perpendicular seam sometimes made in the straight, lofty trunk of a great tree when the upper lightning tearingly darts down it, and without wrenching a single twig, peels and grooves out the bark from top to bottom, air running off into the soil, leaving the tree still greenly alive, but branded.
Huh?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I spaced out. What?
Oh, I knew as soon as I was going to talk about trees, you were just going to get, like, angry sweats.
I'm not going to do that.
And, of course, there is the most famous bit about him. His ivory leg made from a whale's jawbone. Ahab has even bored a hole into the top deck of the ship just so that he can put his peg leg in it and spin around to get a 360-degree view.
Bullshit. Bullshit. That sounds way too funny to be real.
Hey, you! What are you doing over there? I'm looking at you! Here! You spin me right round, matey, right round.
No. That was bad.
That was fantastic.
No, not bad as in offensive. Bad as in just bad.
That was funny.
You fat, drunk asshole. Jesus.
Now, Ahab turns out to be every bit the insane dictator that Ishmael had feared. When his pacing on deck finally drives shipmate Stubb insane from all his stomping, Stubb tells him to knock it the fuck off, you know? Well, Ahab's just corners Stubb and reminds him of his place on this ship. He tells Stubb, "Down, dog, and kennel," meaning that he better get the fuck out of his sight, which I love that quote, "Down, dog, and kennel." Like, man, what a fucking awesome way to tell somebody, like, I'm still on my break, Nancy.
No, it's just like, it's like calling somebody a bitch and then, like, doubling down with a worse way.
I'll put you to sleep. Yar, euthanize. Well, finally, after days coasting the Atlantic, Captain Ahab yells out to the crew, "Masthead there, look sharp, all of ye. There are whales hereabouts. If you see a white one, split your lungs for 'em." It's here, for the next 2 chapters, right when the story is picking up, that Herman Melville goes into the classification of whales and how the whaling industry works. I'm not going to go through this book chapter by chapter, but Melville does do this throughout the entire fucking thing. And it's not for no reason. Like, he sets it up to where these parts are usually going to become relevant in the next few chapters, but it still really fucking killed the mood for me. And I know it does for a lot of other people too. Like, it adds at least another week to your reading just because of it. And it's not like Melville was even the end-all, be-all authority on whales.
Can you just get a copy where they edit that shit out?
You can, and there are several.
Yeah.
We actually know where he got his ideas for all of these chapters that have to deal with biology and shit.
You still got like 22 chapters before he gets on the goddamn boat, though, right?
In fact, there are actually 5 books that he directly plagiarized. We know which ones they are. Also, speaking of his odd writing...
So he just inserts textbooks into his...
Yep.
And his novel?
And acts as if it was him.
Huh.
Yeah, that wrote it all. I don't think any of that was found out in his lifetime, actually. So he just kind of got away with it. Because who the fuck is going to cross-reference with, like, hey, my 10th grade biology textbook says the exact same thing. Like,
especially with an established writer, that's going to be, like, way harder to call out back then.
Right. He's just going to be like, oh, no, they stole my work.
Oh, they stole my textbook work. Well.
Also, speaking of his odd writing habits, because I have nowhere else to really explain this, there are chapters in Moby Dick that will switch from normal writing to scripts like a stage play. And I'm sure there was a reason behind that, but it's still really fucking weird. Anyway, when the story resumes, Captain Ahab has the entire crew join him on deck. Ahab produces a gold doubloon and nails it to the mast, saying, "Whosoever of ye raises me a white-headed whale with a wrinkled brow and a crooked jaw, whosoever of ye raises me that white-headed whale."
They made it sound really silly.
"With 3 holes punctured in his starboard fluke. Look ye, whosoever of ye raises me that same white whale, he shall have this gold ounce, my boys." And the crew shouts in excitement, with just Starbuck asking, "Was this the whale? Was this the fabled Moby Dick that took his leg?" And Ahab confirms it. No, everyone here is now, unfortunately, whether they like it or not, this is no longer a whaling voyage. They are employed by Captain Ahab's personal vendetta to murder just one whale. They're not going to get, like, they're not going out to, like, kill pods and pods of whales. They're on a murder mission. Ahab opens a drink and has everyone take a swig from the bottle, taking an oath of brotherhood to kill this fucking thing. And the 3 harpooners, Queequeg, Tashtego, and Dagu.
That's cool, man. So that's really interesting. But being that we're all out here now, I was just going to make sure we were going to get paid the same way as if we were bringing in a bunch of whales.
Well,
didn't want to do a just mutiny, but I just want to make sure here.
Mutiny may.
Because there's 40 of us and you have one fucking leg, so
I have a gun. And so the 3 harpooners, though, instead of sharing the bottle, Ahab has them kneel in front of him as he knights each of them and has them remove the hollow spearheads from their own personal harpoons. He then fills the spearheads with booze and has them chug it all down. Quote,
it'd be really unfortunate if the whale popped up right then, wouldn't it?
Ah, shit! Yarr, fuck! Quote, now, 3 to 3 ye stand. Commend the murderous chalices. Bestow them, ye who are now made parties to this indissoluble league. Ha, Starbuck, but the deed is done. Yon ratifying sun now waits to sit upon it. Drink, ye harpooneers. Drink and swear, ye men that man the deathful whaleboat's bow. Death to Moby Dick. God hunt us all if we do not hunt Moby Dick to his death.
Damn. All right.
We then go into a chapter about color theory and what it means for Moby Dick to be white.
Does it mean he's white?
I mean, yeah, but he goes into he goes into the fact that it's it means purity and isn't that kind of is it pure to kill something that...
That sounds problematic. I don't know about it.
It isn't until later in the journey that Captain Ahab unveils a secret that he stashed upon the Pequod. Tashtego announces what he thinks may be a white whale from the mast. And so, as everyone gets ready to go off on their whaleboats, Ahab has an additional crew come up from the hold. Against the knowledge of the Pequod's owners, Bildad and Peleg, Ahab has stowed an additional whaleboat and a small group of hand-picked men. Basically, although the captain of a ship would usually not be the one to go out on the water during a hunt, Captain Ahab wants to be the one to murder Moby Dick. To do so,
Hey, man, this is going to make that a lot more complicated.
I don't even know their names.
I would really like to just kill this thing. I don't want to have you in the way.
What's their fucking percentage? God damn it. To be the one to kill Moby Dick, he's employed a group of dangerous Filipinos. In his own part.
Real stabby.
They've got chains, yar. As well as his own personal harpooner, a strange man in black named Fedallah. But Ahab's secret is wasted, as the whale that Tashtego spots turns out not to be Moby Dick. Well, soon the Pequod comes across its first of many ships that it will gam with, the Albatross. Remember, gamming is when you just pull up close and just start
pull up
fucking
close,
talking.
you put the planks on, and then you...
yeah.
If anybody needs piss... Yeah.
Get your piss.
Yeah, you get your piss. Yeah.
Well, Captain Ahab uses a bullhorn to talk with the other captain of the Albatross, asking him if he's seen the white whale known as Moby Dick. When the other captain raises his horn, a gust of wind knocks it from his hands and into the water. So he literally just shrugs at him, and then they move on. Their second encounter is with the town ho.
I feel like all you would have to do to respond to have you seen a gigantic albino whale would be thumbs up or down. You don't need to I don't need verbal confirmation. You could just be like, yeah.
And that was your mom's nickname back in high school, wasn't it?
What?
The town ho? Well, Ahab speaks Ahab speaks privately with the ship's captain. The two crews intermingle. Apparently, the town ho was mutinied a while back. Shush. And while the captain and his loyal men beat back the mutineers, their punishment was slight. They were locked away, later beaten, and then released to work back on the ship. And while all the mutineers had been shown the error of their ways, one sailor named Steelkilt wanted his revenge.
Oh, yeah.
But before he could have it, Steelkilt fell out of a whaleboat while on a hunt and was swallowed up by none other than Moby Dick. Now, although the crew of the Pequod are hunting Moby Dick specifically, that doesn't mean they're hunting Moby Dick exclusively. They are still hunting other whales. It's just that their main focus is on killing Moby Dick. Well, on one excursion, shipmate Stubb manages the killing blow to a sperm whale. He's so proud of himself that he orders the cook to cut a section of the whale out and fry him up a whale steak. And according to Ishmael, it's not good meat.
It's just fat.
I mean, kind of. It's for their survival? Yeah, pretty much. But Stubb is clearly just having a moment. Stubb also forces the cook to give a sermon to the sharks below in the water, hoping that they'll leave, which, of course, they don't. I think he's just being a dick to the guy, kind of. You know, like it's mentioned in the book. It's a black cook, and he was probably just like, I got to tell you how to do things, you know. But like, yeah, just give a sermon to the sharks, and the Christianity will scare them.
I mean, are they fucking with him? Wasn't that the guy who's afraid of whales?
Stubb. This is no.
I mean, whoever was going to give a sermon.
No, Stubb. Oh, the sermon was being done by the cook.
Oh, yeah.
But Stubb is the guy who's just lazy and smokes a pipe.
Oh, okay.
Let's see here. As the days go by and the crew is stripping the dead whale for parts, they have to poke at the sharks with harpoons to try and stop them from eating the whale carcass, killing a few along the way.
Just poke them.
But yeah, actually.
Hey.
I mean, because their heads are just hanging out there as they're trying to pull off a piece. They kind of stay stationary in a way, so you just kind of like line it up and poke them.
I mean, it just seems like they'd be a bit more violent about it.
I feel like you could probably like pick them up too and be like, I know shark blubber isn't anything, but like we can sell all these teeth to, seaside shops for kids to buy, we'll make them into necklaces. Yar. When the crew was done stripping the whale body of all its most useful parts, they cut off the head from the rest of the body and hoist it level to the deck. Meanwhile, the body of the whale floats off and becomes what Ishmael calls a funeral, where all the mourners are in attendance, the mourners being sharks and vultures. As the crew digs out the spermaceti from the whale's head,
Vultures?
Captain... Yeah, right.
Sea vultures?
Yes.
Do you think he just meant like gulls? Birds?
Probably.
And shit? Okay. I've never seen a sea vulture before.
Me neither. I haven't. They're fucking terrifying.
Ever seen one try to take off? I don't know if that would work on water, man.
As the crew digs out the spermaceti from the whale's head, Captain Ahab is seen talking to it, asking what horrors it's seen. So it's just fucking like level to the fucking deck. He just walks up to the whale's eyes and he's like, tell me ye tales.
You're like, dude, stop fucking pretending you're doing something and get to fucking work and help us, please.
Soon the Pequod comes to another ship, the Jeroboam. The crew has been infected with some unknown disease, so Captain Ahab is only able to gam from afar. And yes, they too have seen Moby Dick. According to the captain, they picked up a crazed prophet from New York that calls himself the Archangel Gabriel, and he has since then had the entire crew under his spell. He warned them not to hunt Moby Dick, but when they did, a crew member's whaleboat was flipped into the air by its mighty tail, and the man drowned.
You don't really need a prophet to recommend not hunting that fucking whale.
Any whales, really. I mean,
yeah, I mean any whales, but especially
they're
that
big
one.
and pissed off.
It seems like if you see the white whale, you should go in the other fucking direction and stop killing the shit around it.
Which whale should we not attack? The one that seems like it's won a lot of battles. Don't get that one.
The one that likes to slam boats with its whole fucking body.
Since then, the crew believes the prophet Gabriel is able to call upon curses, and they now do as he says. But Ahab says he's still going to hunt the whale. So the prophet Gabriel tells him, think of the blasphemer, dead and down there, beware of the blasphemer's end. While Tashtego is scooping the spermaceti from the whale's severed head, the chains hoisting the head above the water break free. Tashtego's rope also breaks with the weight of the head, and soon we have Tashtego drowning in 20 feet of whale oil.
Jesus Christ, they had him fucking attached at the same spot they're holding the whale up?
Well, yeah. That's how they scooped it out. We mentioned in the last episode, yeah, you fucking have like just cups and you just like scoop it out.
They didn't just have like a separate fucking attachment point for him?
No. Well, I mean, I think they did. But I mean, the weight of... Oh, you're right. No.
Why wouldn't
Well, okay, but think of it this way. If the whale head, you've got two separate ends on it. If he's like in the middle or something, once the head goes and breaks off one point, he would be in the middle still, maybe?
No,
I don't know.
It's a separate tie-in point.
Oh, okay, right. Because you know everything about tie-in points and ropes.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Maybe he didn't. I mean, for all we know, Herman Melville just, literally swabbed the shit deck every day. We don't know. He was on whaling vessels, but we don't truly know what he was all about. So,
yeah. Would you like a demonstration in the garage?
Of the shit deck?
Never mind. Go on.
So, Tastego's drowning in 20 feet of oil while the head itself is sinking in the ocean. So, like, the oil is heavier than the water itself, and he's just drowning in that while also drowning in water. But with quick thinking, Queequeg manages to jump into the water and pulls Tashtego free. So the issue with spermaceti is that it does harden over time, so you have to squeeze it back into a liquid state. But goddamn, Herman Melville shortens spermaceti to just sperm so often that it makes it fucking comical. Here's a passage with Ishmael squeezing the globs back into shape.
I got used to it. Oh, I got used to it. Nice.
Quote, all the morning long, I squeezed that sperm till I myself almost melted into it. I squeezed that sperm till a strange sort of insanity came over me, and I found myself unwittingly squeezing my co-laborers' hands in it, mistaking their hands for the gentle globules.
This wasn't as funny as I thought it would be.
You're squeezing sperm. Come on. We picked it up with socks and put it at the bottom of the laundry so Mom wouldn't notice.
It sounds like some shit I'd have to have a paid membership to view. Hang on.
Find the bottle opener. Okay. The Pequod soon comes to the German ship Jungfrau. The ship has had no luck spotting Moby Dick. In fact, they've spotted no whales at all. But just then, before the two ships can gam any longer, a pod of whales is spotted nearby, and the Jungfrau speeds off. The Pequod also gives chase.
Speeds off. No, just a boat on fucking sails, just quickly accelerating. It's just really funny to me.
Yeah, you're right. The Pequod
sped off after it took them like 7 minutes to put the sail down and direct it properly. I don't fucking know.
Kick your legs! The Pequod also gives chase, but are slow to catch up, only being able to harpoon the oldest, slowest whale of the bunch. One so old that stone harpoon points are found in the whale's skin. And as soon as the whale dies, he starts sinking. The harpooners aboard the Pequod have to quickly cut their catch free. It's pointed out by one that it seems the Pequod is only able to catch death. The ship later encounters another vessel by the name of Samuel Enderby, in which the crew has seen Moby Dick not too long ago. The captain of the Samuel Enderby even lost his arm to the whale many years ago, and for a moment, he and Captain Ahab have kind of a brotherly solidarity moment. And I may have read this wrong, but I think the prosthetic that the captain of the Samuel Enderby wears is a hammer on his false arm instead of a hook. However, I like the Thor movies. However, the captain of
I enjoyed 40K as a child.
The captain of the Samuel Enderby learned his lesson the first time around. So although the ship encountered Moby Dick a second time on this voyage, they left him the fuck alone. And it's because of this that the captain believes he's saving Ahab's life by not telling him where they encountered the whale. And since the crew remains silent, Ahab leaves in a fucking tizzy. In fact, Ahab, upon once again boarding the Pequod, slams his whalebone peg leg down on the deck so fucking hard it twists and splints. He has to have the carpenter aboard the ship fix it. Now one day the sailors discover that the oil drums they've got in the hold are leaking, and they alert Starbuck and Ahab. Well, Ahab says, don't worry about it. We're not here for profit. And when Starbuck interjects dude, I'm not here for your fucking revenge. None of us are going to get paid. Ahab points a musket at Starbuck. Starbuck tells Ahab in just a few words that he shouldn't worry about him. He needs to worry about himself. He tells him, beware of thyself, old man. And even after this, everyone is for some reason still on Ahab's side about hunting Moby Dick. I guess they all just think it's fucking cool. At some point, I can't exactly remember when, one of the whale boats has Pip come along with him, the little kid with the tambourine. I think because they were down an oarsman who was sick or something, but...
Yeah, come on, get on board.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Pip can't swim. And, of course, Pip goes overboard at some point.
It's not fucked up that they took him out on the little boat. It's fucked up he was out in the water at all, then. What the hell?
I know, he's 8. So he goes overboard.
There are many different levels of fucked up here.
And the Stubb, the shipmate that he's with, he just finds it a pain in the ass to rescue him out of the water. So he yells at him, tells him if he falls overboard again, he's not going to go after him. And true to his word, when Pip falls into the ocean a second time,
oh shit,
the boat just paddles away, leaving him to dog paddle back to the Pequod himself. And this experience completely breaks Pip's mind. Like at one point, someone calls for Pip, and he just starts hallucinating, like he's watching himself drown, like, there's his arm just breaking water. A hatchet, cut it off. We Holland no cowards here. That's a completely broken toddler.
Jesus. Yeah, that's some old school blue collar learning shit right there.
Cut it off.
Can verify. Jesus. Yeah.
One day, Queequeg falls ill. So sick, in fact, that he's believed to pass away at any moment. And so Queequeg orders a coffin to be made from the carpenter. One big enough that he can lay to rest with both his harpoon and his little totem that he prays to go with him. Once it's finished, Queequeg lies down in the coffin to test it out. And Pip's just fucking loving it. He's jumping around and shit with his little fucking tambourine like, now Queequeg die, and it'll be your dying march. And like, he tells him that if he goes to heaven to please look for his sanity. Well, Queequeg does make a recovery, so he ends up just using the coffin as an extra trunk. So Ahab, knowing he's getting closer to the whale, decides to make his own harpoon. This will be his ultimate killing instrument. He forms this steel from the toughest iron, and instead of tempering the hot steel in water, does it in a bowl of blood he's harvested from his 3 harpooners.
Yeah, wait, where did he make this on a ship?
In the
smithing room?
Yes. I don't know the parts of a ship. The shit deck. I don't know. The smithing room. Why not? Actually, is it so outlandish that they might have like somebody that's able to repair like iron? I don't know.
To melt steel, yeah, that's an intense amount of heat to have.
On a wooden ship? Why?
On anything.
When the harpoon is finally finished, Pip's laugh can be heard throughout the hallways of the ship. Like, no one sees him. He just like finally like makes his ultimate killing machine and like smiths it in blood. Just
ha! Looks like a dick.
And they just hear.
All right, man.
Throughout this journey, by the way, Pip and Captain Ahab have become almost like father and son. They talk nothing but madness to each other alone in Ahab's cabin.
That's fucked up.
It's fucked up. Now, Fedallah.
There's no DHS in the sea.
Fedallah, the harpooner that Captain Ahab stowed away with him on the ship, is seen as kind of a devil to a lot of the crew. He only steps into shadows and is rumored to be a Satanist. And it's never really confirmed if any of the mysticism surrounding him is true or not. But one thing he professes to be is an oracle. And alone with Captain Ahab, Fedallah tells him of his future. He says that he himself, Fedallah, will die before Ahab, and that before Ahab's death, he will see 2 hearses. Quote, the first not made by mortal hands, and the visible wood of the last one must be grown in America.
Wait, what the fuck do they mean by hearse? Because
Like,
I know it wasn't like a water hearse.
No, but they had hearses that were carriages. It was still something that carries the dead.
All right.
Hearse is a very old product.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the first one, not made by mortal hands, and the visible wood of the last one must be grown in America. And Ahab thinks, well shit, you only see hearses on land, which means that he won't die at sea, which to him is a good sign. And Fedallah's final prophecy to him is this: hemp only can kill thee. And Ahab fucking blazes it so fucking hard and fast, rips a hole in the ozone layer. No. Now Ahab takes this to mean that he'll be killed in the gallows, probably from some crime he's yet to commit, which, again, is on land. So, however it may happen, it means that at least he'll have his revenge on the water. And as long as he has that, nothing else matters. He does not give a fuck. During a lightning storm, due to whale oil being fucking everywhere on the boat, lightning strikes the ship and lights up all 3 mastheads with white fire at the very tops like large candles. And Ahab refuses to let the fire be put out, seeing it as a good omen. But Starbuck ever the good
You
Christian.
get that we need that to, like, move, right?
Arr, there be paddles and feet. But Starbuck, ever the good Christian.
Hold on to the back and start ye kicking.
Starbuck says...
Fight the sharks, boy.
Oh, fuck, forgot about sharks. Starbuck says that this means danger from God himself. And when he points out that the tip of Ahab's harpoon is also endowed with the white fire, that God is coming after Ahab specifically.
Even God is telling you at this point to just leave the whale alone.
Dude, give it a fucking rest.
The whale took the leg, and that was it telling you to leave it alone. And then you went back out, and you got told by 3 fucking different ships to leave it alone.
Well, I mean, could you imagine the godlike power that he thinks that he has right now? Like, he's standing out in the middle of a rainstorm holding this harpoon, and the top of it is on fire. And he's just like, yes, yes! Like, to quote Ahab, God is against thee, old man, forbear. Oh, wait. This is from Starbuck telling Ahab.
Oh, yeah.
God is against the old man, forbear. 'Tis an ill voyage, ill begun, ill continued. Let me square the yards, while we may, old man, and make a fair wind of it homewards, to go on a better voyage than this. But Ahab just lifts his harpoon and says to his crew, all your oaths to hunt the white whale are as binding as mine, and heart, soul, and body, lungs and life, old Ahab is bound, and that ye may know to what tune this heart beats, look ye here. Thus I blow out the last fear, and blows out the fire on his harpoon. Are 3 wishes I get. Late at night, after the storm passes, a sound of crying is heard off in the distance. The sailors believe it to be sirens, like the fucking, women.
Yeah, the titty fish.
Yeah, titty fish. Or ghosts, maybe. But Ahab tells them it's only a group of seals somewhere. But this doesn't help matters, because apparently seals are actually bad luck. Sure enough, someone later slips off the masthead and falls into the ocean. And although the men are quick to throw out a buoy, it turns out it became waterlogged during the last storm. So both the lifesaver and the man drown. To replace the buoy, the crew hangs up Queequeg's empty coffin. The Pequod comes across their next ship, the Rachel. The captain of the boat tells him that they have indeed seen Moby Dick. In fact, the captain needs Ahab's help because of it. His son went out on a whaleboat to hunt Moby Dick after he was spotted, but through the thick fog, his son disappeared. No noise or anything, just poof, gone. But Ahab refuses to help. Looking for what he knows to be the captain's dead son will be nothing more to him than wasted time. Soon after that, the Pequod runs into their last ship, the Delight. This ship, while still afloat, has been thoroughly gutted. And as the Pequod passes, the Delight dumps a body into the water. Finally, after who knows how many months at sea, because they literally lost a shitload of instruments in the storm, as Ahab walks the top deck, he spies the great white whale, Moby Dick. Upon spotting him, Ishmael knows this whale is one tough motherfucker. He's covered in scars from battles that he's obviously won, and according to Ishmael, is possibly the largest sperm whale that has ever lived. All boats are set into the water while Ahab grabs the gold doubloon he nailed to the mast for himself. Because he did spot it. I mean, it's kind of shitty, but I mean...
It's classic business owner shit.
Yar, it's mine! With the 4 boats led by Ahab, Stupp, Flask, and Starbuck, the first day of chase begins. But it isn't long before Moby Dick dives into the water, disappearing. While the boats look for him to resurface, he pops up, directly under Ahab's boat. The crew are flung into the water as the whaleboat is smashed to pieces. The waterlogged men are picked up by the other boats, and they return to the Pequod to continue their pursuit. Now, while it takes the Pequod another day to catch up with him, they do manage to spot Moby Dick a second time. This time, as the remaining whaleboats make their way to the whale, with Ahab taking over Starbuck's boat so he's stuck aboard the Pequod, Flask and Stubbs' boats manage to catch Moby Dick in the side with their harpoons. But the fucking whale manages to swing his whole body and crash the 2 boats together. He also clotheslines the ropes across Ahab's boat, which nearly decapitates him. The whale then reemerges, again capsizing Ahab's boat specifically, and snapping his whalebone leg in his jaws. Yar, you can't get me twice. Yar, fool me once. Yar, fool me twice. Yar, can't fool me twice. Talking like a pirate is so fun.
Yeah.
I wish I could do it at work and not be fired. When
You
the
would
crew...
need way more tension than that to decapitate somebody.
What, from the fucking rope going past?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big boy. He's swinging it by.
Yeah,
I guess.
but that's not where the tension's coming from. The tension's coming from the centrifugal force in the boat.
Well, okay. You know what? Herman Melville, not a biologist, also not a physicist.
Okay.
Or an arborist.
Fuck off.
When the crew returns again to the Pequod, Ahab has the carpenter make another leg for him from the remnants of his destroyed whaleboat. And Starbuck tries to convince Ahab that maybe this is the last thing he should do, pursue the whale. And at first he's like, maybe you're right. I'll consult my oracle. Where's Fedallah? Turns out Fedallah got wrapped up in Ahab's ropes when Moby Dick bit the boat in half and sunk along with whatever wreckage went with the whale. And that, for Ahab, gives him his answer. He realizes that the first of Fedallah's prophecies has already become true. Fedallah dies before Ahab. And because of that, as he explains to Starbuck, the rest has already been predestined. Now he just must follow his destiny. On the third and final day of the chase, the crew spies nothing in the waters until Captain Ahab realizes, he's chasing me now, not I him. Sure enough, when the Pequod turns around, off in the distance is the spouting of the white whale. The 3 boats launch from the Pequod, but Ahab's oars are bitten by sharks when he puts them on the water, almost as if nature itself is trying to pull him back. You're right, God is just like, stop!
Just don't. Just leave it be.
You were dumb and you got in its waters. Like, what do you want? This is a dumb thing for revenge. It reminds me of that old story of like a dude, this is a true story, a dude's friend fell into a lion pit and got eaten by lions. I don't know where this was. And the dude snuck into the zoo at night with a fucking rifle and climbed into the lion den. And like they watch it on camera. Like he lines it up and everything. And he can't bring himself to kill them. And as he's walking away, the lions eat him too. Like, this is your fault, dude. You asked for this.
Wait. Okay,
what?
Go on. Sorry.
There are no lions in the story. So the first 2 boats go after Moby Dick without Ahab. As the whale breaches the water, entangled on him is the wreckage from the day before, along with Fedallah's corpse, riding the whale like an undead cowboy. The wreckage from the day before, along with Fedallah's corpse.
How many messages do you need to just fuck off and turn around? The thing is just covered in human skeletons at this point. Just fucking leave it alone.
It's like a fucking Dark Souls boss.
just fuck up.
Fucking Fedallah's like jacket gets undone and he's wearing like his shirt that he got from that concert, that one band, you know, the one that says, leave it the fuck alone.
Maybe not this one.
When Ahab sees this off in the distance, he recognizes this as the first of the hearses, the one, quote, not made by mortal hands. After scuttling with the first 2 whaleboats briefly, Moby Dick dives into the water, passes by them with such a speed that he is said to be, quote, possessed by all the angels that fell from heaven, and charges straight for the Pequod, cracking its hull with his head. Quote, retribution, swift vengeance, eternal malice were in his whole aspect. In spite of all that mortal man could do, the solid white buttress of his forehead smote the ship's starboard bow, till men and timbers reeled. Some fell flat upon their faces. Like dislodged trucks, the heads of the harpooneers aloft shook on their bull-like necks. Through the breach they heard the waters pour as mountain torrents down a flume. The ship! The hearse! The second hearse! Cried Ahab from the boat. Its wood could only be American. Ah? Ah?
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah.
Ahab is reinvigorated to destroy his sworn enemy. Because, you know, he's like, I'm not going to die from rope. With all this might, he manages to plunge his harpoon into Moby Dick. He cries out, thus I give up the spear. Moby Dick speeds down into the depths of the water so fast that the hemp line tied to Ahab's harpoon goes flying into the air and entangles itself around his neck, dragging him into the ocean with him. As the Pequod sinks, the vortex created sinks all the remaining whaleboats and crew down with it. But, quote, the drama's done. Why then here does any one step forth? Because one did survive the wreck. In the epilogue, we find that Ishmael was thrown from the Pequod's wreckage before its sinking, luckily sending him out of the area of effect for the vortex, and he is the only survivor. Queequeg's empty coffin floats to the surface, lending itself as a raft for Ishmael. He is only discovered by the Rachel a day later, as the captain still searches for his missing son.
Did you guys see the white? Yes! Yes, we fucking did. Jesus.
What are you doing out here? Are you with my son?
Fuck!
The book ends thus, quote, it was the devious cruising Rachel that in her retracing search after her missing children only found another orphan. Now the thing is, while there are themes to Moby Dick, they are hard to figure out. And there's not a definitive answer as to what they are. Everyone has a different opinion of them. For me personally, the themes are very biblical. Like Ahab walks away from the Christian Starbuck to be with the Satanist Fedallah, Peleg, Bildad, Ahab. All names are from the Bible. Stuff like that. But honestly, we don't know exactly what the correct themes are, if there are even any correct ones. Basically, for something like Ulysses by James Joyce, the book was an immediate success, so people were able to ask Joyce some follow-up questions, and he kind of helped them figure it out, you know? But as we're going to find out, Moby Dick was a critical failure upon release, so no one bothered to talk with Melville about it. It's because of this that we have some good ideas on what the themes are, but honestly, just like having entire chapters in screenplay form or interrupting the story to talk about etymology, Melville was doing a lot of things that were new to literature. And maybe they were things he was just trying out, or maybe there was a deeper purpose behind these things. I don't know. And the only reason I'm not taking a guess at any of these myself is because Moby Dick is so hotly debated over the most minute shit that I don't feel like it. Like, there's a character that shows up twice in the entire book, doesn't do anything, but there's still an entire archipelago in Antarctica named after the guy. The book is that influential. Motherfucker, one of the random chapters that Melville interjects in the story about fair game in the wild called Fast Fish and Loose Fish has been adapted into U.S. politics. This book is very influential to every living thing. Herman Melville dedicated Moby Dick to Nathaniel Hawthorne, who without his influence, the book probably would have been a lot less dark.
That was the Mocha Dick guy?
No, he's a Scarlet Letter kind of guy. He was the dude who, like, I love your stories. And, like, Melville read his stuff and he was like, I love yours too. And he was just like, leave me alone. Because he's just old and curmudgeon-y. Mm-hmm. And actually, since Nathaniel Hawthorne loved Moby Dick, he later dedicated his book, A Wonder Book for Girls and Boys, to Herman as well. Quote, on the higher side of Pittsfield sits Herman Melville, shaping out the gigantic conception of his white whale, while the gigantic shape of Greylock loom upon him from his study window. Greylock was the mountain where he fucked that one lady. He could see it from his writing desk.
Yeah.
Now, while Moby Dick is, of course, fiction, it still holds the classic Melville structure of being based on some experiences from his life. In particular, before Herman set sail on the Acushnet, he attended service at the Seaman's Bethel, or as it was portrayed in Moby Dick, the Whaleman's Chapel, probably a better, less kinky name for it. And not just the locations of where Herman had been, but also some of the crew were based on people he'd sailed with. For instance, the owner of the Acushnet was a Quaker like Bildad. In fact, the owner of the Acushnet was so religious that he would scratch out the word swear on contracts, like I swear to, and write affirm over it instead, since swearing was bad.
Wow. Dude, what do you do? Never mind.
Now, the influence to Moby Dick were two events that we've already gone over so far. The whale attack aboard the Essex in 1820 and the killing of Mocha Dick in 1838. But while the book hadn't even come out yet, there was yet another attack on another whaling vessel on August 20th, 1851, called the Anne Alexander. And arguably, I'd say this whale was more fierce than the one that attacked the Essex. Whereas that one just hit the ship twice, this one managed to destroy 3 whaling boats and then sunk the main ship. It took the men 2 days to get rescued. And of course, this was pretty big fucking news. When Melville heard about it, he said, Ye gods, what a commentator is this Anne Alexander Whale. What he has to say is short and pithy and very much to the point. I wonder if my evil art has raised this monster. No, just don't.
It was the whaling.
Don't fucking wail. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but authors back in these days took a relatively short time to produce a whole-ass novel. When your job was writing, people back then just had the time to write, and the turnaround for a completed novel was pretty quick. But for Herman Melville, he took 2 years to write Moby Dick. And that's not to say that he wasn't absolutely hammering away at it every single fucking day, but he went through several drafts to get it just right.
It's really hard to, find the sources for all that plagiarized textbook material. Had to wait for one to come in the mail.
I mean, kind of. I'm sure it's true. Like, you got to get outside of wherever the fuck Pittsfield is.
Shit, I don't actually know anything about the biology.
Probably have to go to fucking Boston just to get to a library that might have a book about whales, Who knows? And although people didn't like Marty, his earlier novel, he wanted to return to that writing style. He didn't like Redburn and White Jacket. He thought they were lazy writing. And he was kind of right. The laziness of his writing on his 2 previous novels meant that the sales were slow. And because of this, the first edition of Moby Dick only ran 500 copies in England. And here's the thing. Both the American and English editions basically made a word salad of his book and decided to make entirely different novels altogether. The English publisher changed any reference that they deemed sacrilegious, like anyone saying, "Oh my God," to something else. They also changed any critique of England to be positive and changed the spelling of everything to match the British spellings. So, for instance, color, C-O-L-O-R, is now color, C-O-L-O-U-R. They really bothered to do away with all of it. Absolutely unnecessary. The British edition changed 700 words and over 1,000 punctuations. They also moved all of Melville's extra bits about whaling and the biology and color theories to the very back of the book like they were part of an appendix. Meanwhile...
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it, but...
That's fine.
If
that's a sacrifice you have to make it readable.
I guess, but like I said, it has a purpose to it where it's like, that shit was coming up. So, like, if you're explaining how stuff works in the very, very, very back, and then they're talking about all these terminologies in the very next chapter, then you're like, what the fuck is going on? What? But, I don't know. Meanwhile, the American edition took all those parts out altogether. So while the English edition of Moby Dick was 927 pages, the American version was 635 pages. That's a 300-page difference. But here's the biggest change and the entire reason for the failure of Moby Dick. The final chapter, the epilogue that shows Ishmael's survival, is completely gone in the English version. And as we explained all the way back on our Cervantes episode, books have rules, or at least they had rules. And without the epilogue, the book ends with the Pequod having sunk and all its crew, including Ishmael's, apparent death. So these would be the final words in the book. Now small fowls flew screaming over the yet yawning gulf. A sullen white surf beat against its steep sides, then all collapsed, and the great shroud of the sea rolled on as it rolled 5,000 years ago. And since the book was in the first person, that makes the entire tale a lie, right? Like, how the fuck can Ishmael tell the tale if he's fucking dead? So people who slogged all the way through the book saw that it ended with the number 1 literary rule being broken, like a final fuck you to the reader. And that's how everyone saw it. Now, the reviews for the book in England, surprisingly, almost all good. Even with the absolute chopping that the English editions had, it still had Melville's prose. It was called a poetic romance, poetry and blubber, and powerful in its cumulated horrors.
Not poetry and dick?
Poetry with dick. It's a dick novel. However, as is the case in news articles today, although the demographic of bad opinions is usually the smallest, they are also the loudest. Because of this, even though I'd say a good 80% of reviews were positive, the reviews that made their way to America were the negative ones. To quote Henry Chorley from the British magazine Athenaeum, quote, "An ill-compounded mixture of romance and matter-of-fact. The idea of a connected and collected story had obviously visited and abandoned its writer again and again in the course of composition. The style of his tale is in places disfigured by mad rather than bad English, and its catastrophe is hastily, weakly, and obscurely managed.
Yeah.
Now, how'd that make your dick feel?
Mostly just made my head hurt.
Now, back then in America, so the whole thing was that, yeah, not only did they fuck with everything, but the biggest thing, the major downfall to the entire book itself was just that they cut out the epilogue. And everyone got, like, any non-critic reader got mad that it broke the rule of having the book be in first person. That was it. Because the main character apparently dies. Now, back then, in America, the book critics hardly did any of their own work. Most of the time, they actually just copied the reviews coming out of England. So even though the American version had the epilogue, which shows Ishmael living, almost all of the reviews still said that it was stupid that he died. But there were
Just make this sound less British. And then we're good.
Oh, he said color theory with a U. That's cute.
This is the best job ever.
So easy. But there were still a few good reviews in America, by like the people who actually read it. But because of these bad reviews, the sales of Moby Dick were incredibly, incredibly slow. By the end of Herman's life, it was out of print. The sales didn't even allow him to pay back his advance in full. He was given just £150 from Richard Bentley, his English publisher, and he could only pay back £38. Over his entire life, Herman Melville received just a little more than $1,000 in today's money. This, above all, was Herman's proof to himself that he was indeed a shit writer. Oh, and by the way, between the English and American editions of Moby Dick getting released, Lizzie and Herman had another kid named Stanwix, which he named after the fort that his grandfather protected against the British during the American Revolution. Not much else to say about that because he didn't really talk about his kids. So,
Just dicks.
just dicks. Just everyone likes a good hard blubber,
Just not writing about kids, just dicks.
It's a lot of Swedish fat.
That's pretty much all I got for the entire episode. It's
Just it's all about dicks.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, hey, everyone on there just had big dick energy.
Wait, are we dunsies or?
Yeah, that's it for.
I thought you said
Moby
this
Dick.
is a three-parter.
It is a 3-parter.
Wait,
But he's not dead yet. That was the entirety of Moby Dick. Moby Dick's a big book. A lot happened, so we went over the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
That's this entire episode. Yeah, part 3 next 2 weeks from now.
I don't know.
Whatever. It's going to be the death of Herman Melville. Spoilers. I'm sorry, but he is dead. Oh man. Oh, to go into it a little bit though.
Oh god,
dude. So I got a Moby Dick tattoo of what I thought was my favorite scene, and rereading it, this scene never happened. This is technically incorrect. This is Captain Ahab wrapped up in his body as if he's Fadala, when really he got caught around the neck. So I kind of mixed up two things.
You can just tell people he's Fadala, right? I mean, who's gonna?
I don't know. Maybe the ivory leg that he's got.
Oh, yeah, you fucked up.
Oh, also, so Moby Dick is jumping over the moon, and here's the thing: I thought Melville was being fucking poetic, but in like the last chapter, there's like he talks about a white gull going over the moon, and I thought it was poetic that he was talking about Moby Dick like cresting the fucking moon and like
No,
like
not
he's
that
in
complicated.
flight.
Actually,
No, it was actually just a seagull. I was like rereading it, and I was like, oh no, wait, he brings it up later. That's an actual seagull. So now I've got a tattoo of Moby Dick jumping over the moon with Captain Ahab riding. I'm like an undead cowboy.
Good job.
It cost me a lot of money.
Okay, well, still not as bad as the Death Eater tattoo. That didn't age well, did it?
Oh, why? What's wrong? I don't know. My next tattoo is going to be a lot simpler. I was just going to get a Led Zeppelin tattoo.
Yeah, aside from our full fucking names, which we just have on this, let's start talking about other ways to identify each other, right? Before we put this on the internet. Fucking fantastic idea.
Man, did I ever tell you about this one scar I have on my fucking finger?